What's up, everybody? Welcome to a special live Northern NerdChats. This is Season 2, Episode 1. As you can see, there is just two of us. Unfortunately, Nathan messaged me about 5 minutes before we were supposed to go live that he had a massive headache and that he unfortunately wouldn't be joining us. But the show must go on, as they say. So joining me on this incredible live stream is none other than Svenny McGee. How are you, man?
Hey, doing all right, doing all right. Nice way to start the new season here with a very special guest. And of course, it's always good to see you.
It's always great to see me, man. Come on.
Right? Any time of the year.
How's
Every season.
every season's a great season when you're on the Northern NerdCast. So how's the I'm just gonna do that awkward breaking the ice. How's the weather up there?
Cold, snowy, much the same. I think we've been seeing across Northern Ontario here. We have a good couple feet out there. Unfortunately, it's staying so cold. It's getting hard to even just enjoy some of the other winter things like going for a skate, etc. But we're hanging in there. We're still enjoying it.
Yeah, we have mild weather today, so we moved the vehicles off the driveway. Snow blowed a little hill for them, so now they're outside sledding just in case any extra noises get picked up on the mic and it just sounds bad on the channel. But they're having a good time. It's the first little break that we've had since the cold snap, and unfortunately, Clayton's another person that couldn't join us. But his reasoning is completely different. He is sick, and my wife is sick, so unfortunately that puts me in quarantine as well. So I mean, it's not all bad because we get to do this pretty much whenever we want. Like, it's not like we're in the same room with everybody and all that stuff. So coming up on today's show, we've got another legend in the video game industry. We are going to be chatting with Meer. So for those of you who don't know who he is, but if you know the video games, he was Shepard, male Shepard in the Mass Effect Trilogy. He was also in Baldur's Gate, Dragon Age. He's even Neverwinter Nights. So there's a lot of that role-playing elements style games that we're going to be chatting with him about. He was also in Vampire the Masquerade. They actually made a TV show about it. I didn't know that, so definitely be talking to him about that. And Clayton threw in some questions. Hopefully he's on and we can see those comments and the questions, because I'm still getting used to this whole OBS to live stream, so I'm not going to be jumping back. Adam, if you see any questions appearing on the chat, then feel free to just say so, and whoever it is, ask them. Hopefully Rob's Chetto's on. We do have a pretty banging gift for Mark from him as well as us for coming on the show, which we will do a little bit later on once we've chatted a bit and had a couple laughs, or maybe not some laughs, maybe some awkward silence. Who knows?
No, I think things are going to be pretty sweet here. And again, it's always fun to have, we're so lucky we've had the guests that we've had on the show, and always nice support with of course Rob from Zombie Portraits and
zombieportraits.com. You got to check it out, and we'll do the proper introduction for Rob, and we'll drop the his links and everything in the description below once everything's set. But yeah, definitely check out zombieportraits.com. He does amazing work. He's been to every single expo that myself and Mike Shanks have put on. He's been a very big supporter of us. So if we could even get one or two people checking his page out and getting some art zombifying their loved one for Valentine's Day, it's a pretty big thing that he does on Valentine's Day with his packages. So definitely check out his work on zombieportraits.com. So you got the house to yourself now?
Yeah, the kids are out with the wife right now, so we've got about 5 minutes of quiet here, I'm sure. Just in time for the podcast. Sometimes everything kind of aligns themselves together here, so it's nice. Yeah, I mean, again, I'm just down here kind of in our little play space here and getting things ready, and I'm still working on some videos over on my channel as well.
Plug yourself.
And,
go for it.
Well, might as well. Oh, well, while we're here, I am Svenny McG. I do have my own YouTube channel, youtube.com/SvennyMcG. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the fun accounts. See some of my wares in my gear, and I talk about much of it on my channel. Usually I go through product reviews and items and try and dig up some unique peripherals to gaming and things like that is what I like to do there. So it's a lot of fun. We've been at this for a little bit here, and glad to have found you and your podcast and to be a part of the show here as well.
And for those of you who don't know, he is also now Daddy Warbucks. He's reached his 1,000 subscribers, so now he's part of the monetization. That's the word, monetization aspect of YouTube. So he'll have those big bucks rolling in soon.
those giant numbers right now.
Those giant $1 bills.
That's right. My phone can barely take them. That's how big it is right now. No, it's but I mean, it is certainly a goal. I think everybody, it doesn't mean everybody wants or has to try and do this for a living, but it's certainly a nice milestone to get that 1,000. So again, thank you to everybody that's supported me along the way. Always appreciate that, and it's great to hear from you guys, and we'll keep trying to keep you guys entertained and have some smiles and laughs along the way.
Yeah, it's very good content that he puts out. So if you're ever on the fence about buying something and you're not checking out inside the game, sorry, I had to throw out the dollar, the pay me sign.
Right.
Adam does do reviews on products and peripherals and games too. But it's definitely worth checking out, and it's like one of our mutual acquaintances said, Scott. Well, he's a friend too, but nobody does thumbnails like Adam.
It's all that all the pizzazz that you can put in that little 1-inch photo.
Yeah, but it works. It works. So I mean,
so get the clicks, and then hopefully when you're there, you enjoy the content itself. Like I said, at least 1,000 of you do, and that makes me smile to be able to say that. So,
well, it's more than 1,000 now. You're at like 1,040.
Yeah, we're getting there. We're closing in on it.
The next goal is 10,000.
Infinity and beyond. Now,
I like the Superman cup.
Yeah,
I'm drinking from one that has a very weird looking arm, and you can't really fit anything in it. So,
the flex is too big.
But so what have you been gaming? I know you've been doing a lot of stuff with the kids, but is there anything that you've been doing on your own? Anything worth mentioning?
One thing we got not too long ago was Cuphead on the Nintendo Switch. And so we've been playing that. Now I have been playing with my son. I've been looking to, I find that everybody's going to tell you it's hard, and it is. But, playing in co-op, even if he goes down first, like if he bows out first, I can still try and carry the level on and we can complete it. And then sometimes, playing in simple, if someone takes the hit for so the other person can move on.
Yeah.
Not that I try and throw my kids under the bus on that, but it's a fun co-op player platformer game. It's certainly been out for a bit, but it's new to us, new to our household. So we've been trying that and enjoying that.
Is it a Souls style game? Like I heard the difficulty on it can be quite extreme.
Yeah, you can really get pummeled quick. Like sometimes I can only make it through like 25% of a level, but it does incentivize you to move on. There's just a lot of enemies, and sometimes they move fast, but like you've never seen a game like it. Like the animation is just like next level,
It kind of reminds me, like it's obviously a different style game, but it kind of reminds me of that animation that they have in Bendy and the Ink Machine, like that very 1930s Disney style animation.
Yes.
And Ben, if you haven't played Bendy and the Ink Machine, it's not a kid's game, so don't think it's meant for kids. Like these are cartoons that are trying to kill you.
Yeah.
But it's a pretty fun game, and lots of jump scares too for something like that.
Yeah, that's what I heard. I've seen Bendy's. I haven't played it yet, but same thing. The animation in that looks fantastic as well. Is it more of like a 3D or 2.5?
It's a first person.
Okay.
Yeah. And you just go. You're an old animator who gets called back to your former studio that you left, and basically you're just going around with an axe. You have no other weapons. So and yeah, it's like
It
ink
it sounds
blobs
like
and
yeah, it's almost like Cuphead meets like Five Nights at Freddy's type of thing. It
yeah,
sounds like
yeah.
where maybe different style of gameplay, but at least that type of mentality. Like you're here and all these lovable creatures are around you, and then all of a sudden everything goes sideways. So
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. That's and it gets more strange. It's an episodic game, but like now you can buy the whole series on
right,
physical. But yeah, as it goes on, it gets more bizarre, and it's like, wow, really? They did that? Okay.
yeah,
But yeah, 1930s Freddy's is what I would say.
interesting. I'll definitely put it down in the books to check out. That's for sure.
I've been back and forth between quite a few games. I started playing Near Replicant. It wasn't for me, so it's just gonna go back on my shelf. Sorry, Clayton. I had to pick it up at clearance price. You paid full price for it, but we won't get into that. But I started that, and then I uninstalled it, and I put Killzone in the new one on PS4. It's a fun game. I really like what Guerrilla Studios is doing, especially now with Horizon Forbidden West coming out. I finished the main story and the side story, like the spin-off DLC for Ghost of Tsushima. Now I'm just going around getting all the fox dens and all that stuff. So I'll
Did you?
have
Sorry, you actually completed the full story mode on Ghosts as well?
yeah, yeah. It's not
Oh,
it's not long, but it's one of those games that like here's the path and then side quest, side quest, side quest, and then before you know it, you're strong. You're so strong that going back to fight against the Khan is like is nothing. It's so easy.
yeah.
So and then, but yeah, that was fun. I don't know if they'll do a sequel. I know there's rumors about a movie coming, so we'll see what happens with that. But I highly recommend that too. Like, I mean, I know you have a PS4. It's on PS5 as well. But if you don't have a PS5, it's just as good on PS4. So
Yeah, I'm still waiting. Like I said, I've got for PS4 over the break there, I did grab the Spider-Man Game of the Year edition as well as the Miles Morales copies. So again, I know that they're not full PS5 graphically rendered, but I'm still looking forward to getting into those ones soon for sure. I think those are going to be my next major gameplays.
and especially with Spider-Man 2 coming out soon. We saw that world premiere at
Yes.
the Game Awards and Wolverine coming out. Like it's going to be a
Oh,
really big game, a big year or big next couple of years for gamers, and
yes.
I'm excited. My wife actually ordered me we talked about this off air, but my wife ordered me a Series X. Well, for the kids, we'll say that. Um, but and then the 20th anniversary Xbox controller as well, which I think is pretty cool.
Yeah.
And I don't need physical, so like if I need to buy an external hard drive to put stuff on, then I eventually will. I know they're a little bit pricey now, but I know my wife's watching because she just sent me a message saying she can only see you and me. So if you're watching still, I'll take an external hard drive too. Love you.
Well, and the thing is, yeah, like if you're going to be playing some standard fare on there, you can probably get away with even an external like HDD
Hmm.
as opposed to the slotting in like the 1 terabyte like solid state. Because the solid states are definitely pricey, but I know even the external hard drives. I just got one for my Xbox One, and it was about $100 for a 4 terabyte. So I'm sure some of the Game Pass stuff you're going to play, especially if it's indie games and stuff that may not be pushing the high rendering, you might be able to get away with storing a lot there as well.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, that's yeah. Clayton just sent me a message that he's hurting. So it is all good. We will definitely have fun with this here. But yeah, I don't need physical. I've got Game Pass. So for the next little bit, we'll be just doing Game Pass. So and our guest of honor has arrived. So we will welcome him into the chat. Here we go. Hello.
Hello, folks. How's it going?
We are fantastic. How are you, sir?
Good, good. Are we live currently?
We are. So I had mentioned to you earlier that I had a friend who is a huge Mass Effect fan. He was we did our test run and everything, and he was ready to go. He messages me 5 minutes before we're about to go on that he's sick and he can't come on anymore. So
Oh, that's all right. Sorry about that.
Oh, it happens. I mean, that's what happens when you're live. This is one of my other good friends. This is Adam. He's also known as
Hey, Adam.
Svenny
Hi, Mark.
McG, and he's got his own YouTube channel. But thank you for taking the time to come on and chat with us. I really
Not
appreciate
at all.
you.
Thanks for having me.
I appreciate you coming on for our season 2. I know we had talked about possibly December, but it got crazy for everybody. I
Of course.
follow you on Instagram, and you were at a lot of the cons, and now you're involved with that Kevin Smith thing, which I want to talk about if you're able to talk about that, because that seems pretty cool.
Involved with which Kevin Smith thing?
Is it Kevin Smith's the Champions, the D&D? Was that?
Oh, no, Kevin Smith is not involved with that. I was just like, Kevin Smith. It's like, I guess I just watched his and Mark Bernardin's podcast, and I know Mark Bernardin, but no, Kevin's not involved in that. Maybe you're thinking Matthew Lillard is involved in that. He's one of the players. It's called Champions of the Realm, and
Yes,
it's essentially
yes.
player versus player Dungeons and Dragons tournament for charity. Just a bunch of friends getting together to pit their Dungeons and Dragons characters against one another for their various charities. I'm actually raising money for Make-A-Wish, and if you go to championsoftherealm.com, you can donate not only to my cause, but to each of the individual, all worthy causes that everybody in the tournament has as their backer. And even those who've been eliminated from the tournament already, you can still continue to donate to their various causes.
Okay.
And a lot of fun. That's actually Realmsmith TV.
Oh, that's where I saw. That's why
Yeah.
I see. I'm a reader like that, so I was like Kevin Smith. Oh my god.
Oh, that's the connection. Right. Okay.
So, okay.
Nope, not Kevin Smith, Ron Smith. I'm sure, I know Kevin Smith has played D&D on Deborah Ann Wall's channel. That's the other thing. Deborah Ann Wall is involved. And she's played Dungeons and Dragons with Kevin. So there's a connection there. And it's a lot of fun. We've just finished our first round of competition. And I can safely say, because my episode has aired, that I won my first match.
Right.
I was actually playing against Anna Prosser from Acquisitions Inc. and of course Dice Camera Action, and we had a fantastic match. It was a lot of fun. My character Baloth managed to emerge triumphant against very high odds because Anna is playing, of course, a paladin, and they tend to have very high saving throws. She's specifically an Oath of the Ancients paladin, which means she has resistance to all magic damage, and my guy's a sorcerer. So yeah, that was tight. I had to get creative with some of my and also, it came down to a very, very tight DM's call at the end. But I will be advancing, and I believe coming up this week we've got one of the semifinal matches, and this will be Alicia Marie fighting Nora Abraham. Who's also my colleague on the Black Dice Society, which is another regular Dungeons and Dragons show that I do on the D&D channel every Thursday, and that's our Ravenloft campaign. Awesome. It was really fun. That was one of the things I was doing down in December. We went down to LA and shot that there with the Realmsmith crew. It was great. It was really fun, and I did that right before I went to PAX Unplugged. So yeah, it's been a very busy time. Little less busy now because things got canceled and whatnot due to our current state of affairs. But hopefully we're back on track sooner rather than later, because I've got a number of events coming up, like D&D in a castle, which is basically what it sounds like, playing Dungeons and Dragons in a castle, a real castle in the UK.
Wow.
I did that last back in 2019, which was the last time it happened. And they've got a fantastic crew of dungeon masters there as well. So lots of pretending and rolling small mini-sided pieces of plastic.
So there's lots of YouTube channels that we can be tuning into to see all this stuff.
Oh,
I
of
would
course,
assume.
of course.
Now, is your Dungeons and Dragon character based on the character you played in Baldur's Gate? Is that the...
Yes, it is in fact the guy.
The guy.
We in the tournament, we are in the Champions of the Realm tournament. We're all playing characters from the Idle Champions games. And in large measure, it's characters that we created, or in my case, a character that I had voiced in a video game before. So I actually, it's sort of the opposite for me, because I played Baloth Baratil, the Drow sorcerer. He was an antagonist in the Black Pits in Baldur's Gate Enhanced Edition. And he was a lot of fun to play. I have subsequently played him at a lot of tabletop things. Like I played him at D&D Live at Descent into Avernus in a mega high-level campaign that B. Dave Walters ran, where my character, I don't know, do you know the monster, the Tarask from Dungeons and Dragons? It's basically one of the most, it's the Godzilla of the D&D universe. It's like a really, really powerful monster. I managed to capture it at the end and take it back to the Black Pits with me for exhibition to a paying audience. So I've had a lot of fun with Baloth in the past, and I've played him in some of the Idle Champions Presents campaigns, and including one that I got to play with Luke Gygax, the son of Gary Gygax, one of the creators of Dungeons and Dragons. So he's gone on to have a life outside of the video game realm, and now, of course, he's playing in this tournament.
Oh, wow. So would you say that your character going from the villain in Baldur's Gate, has he redeemed himself for the Champions tournament, or is he still
not at all,
guy?
not remotely. No, he's I mean, Baloth is chaotic evil, and that hasn't changed. He's always been chaotic evil. He will continue to be chaotic evil, barring any intervention by deities or whatnot. But he has managed to learn to be a team player, and it's probably for his own preservation, because when he was originally introduced, he was a very high level character who kidnaps your party and forces them to fight in these gladiatorial combat. But when he's hanging out with people of his own level, he's probably a lot better well behaved, because he knows that if he kicks up too much of a stink, all these lawful good people are going to gang up on him. He also really, it's probably good not to advertise that you're evil if you're hanging out with a bunch of good people. Just sort of like, I'm in agreement with the party. That said, he certainly doesn't have much in the qualities of, say, mercy or kindness, and that comes through in play. That said, he's relatively pleasant to be around. So
he wouldn't be kind of like Artemis, where Artemis sort of redeemed himself in the Legacy of the Drow series.
Yeah, Baloth, he's really fun to play in that he's not interested in redemption. What pop culture reference could I give? Oh yeah, I guess if you're familiar with the X-Men comics, I'd say Baloth is probably closest to someone like Arcade or Mojo. And in fact, his MO is very similar in that he kidnaps people and then forces them to play these ridiculous games or enter these combats and things like that.
That's awesome.
But, if you manage to succeed, he heaps wealth and magic items on you. And because, he's happy because it's good for ratings.
Very much like Mojo, then.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah. There's he's like a skinny Mojo.
Was your playing that character then, Mark? Did that inspire you to get into D&D, or were you already into?
Oh no. D&D came before acting for me. I started playing back in 1981 when awesome. I was just a little kid, and I was playing with older kids. So I didn't even start with the basic edition back then, the old red box. I got that later. But the first D&D I ever played was Advanced Dungeons and Dragons, that I was playing with kids that were, 2 or 3 years older than me. So I jumped in at the deep end. And so when I went back, when my parents, eventually got me the basic box and the expert box from way back, and you've probably seen pictures of them from way back in the 1980s. I considered it this feels like going back to training wheels. I want Advanced Dungeons and Dragons. I don't want this dumbed down version. Not that no offense to basic or expert D&D, but as a kid, it was no. I want all the rules that I was playing with before.
For sure.
Mm-hmm.
I just remember through like coming up through the 80s and like it's D&D getting into that realm where it was getting like really hammered by the right wing and
Oh
being
yeah, no. If we're referring,
these kids are have swords and they're practicing Satanism. It's like easy,
yeah,
like
yeah, it was the Satanism thing that was sort of the headline, and yeah, I certainly lived through the height of the Satanic Panic. That's when I was playing. I also liked heavy metal music, so that was a double whammy. Uh, but as several people have pointed out to me, it's like, hey, we won. We won.
Yep.
Dungeons and Dragons is more popular now than it's ever been.
That's right.
Well,
And
and
then
you see, sorry, go ahead, Adam.
Well, I was just going to say, do you think some of that too? Because I know kind of next wave going through late 80s into the 90s, like Magic really suddenly ballooned and then, it really hit the forefront. I started seeing people even in school bring in their cards and things like that. Do you think that helped to contribute to the whole, maybe that genre?
I think so. And I mean, there were several fronts, of course, that led to Dungeons and Dragons' current popularity. Like, Magic, as you mentioned, and even things like, I'd say, the popularity of the Harry Potter books, the Lord of the Rings movies getting made, where fantasy just became so much more mainstream than it was back in the 80s. Right. Game of Thrones becoming one of the most popular series on TV. You look at now and you've got like how many fantasy-based TV show you got, like Wheel of Time and Witcher, and the Vox Machina, the Critical Role cartoon just launched, and there's so much programming that is fantasy-based. We didn't have that back in the 80s. Back in when I was first starting out playing D&D, it's like we had Krull and Hawk the Slayer, like that was about the extent of it, and maybe like the old Ralph Bakshi Lord of the Rings cartoon, like the rotoscoped one. So seeing where it's come now is just amazing. And it's taken an even, before the pandemic, Dungeons and Dragons was more popular, like at the height of its popularity, more popular than it ever was in the 1980s. And with the pandemic, it's taken another huge leap because anecdotally, I know people who hadn't played Dungeons and Dragons since the 80s. When the pandemic started up, with playing on Zoom and everything, I'm playing with, old friends of mine that hadn't played since back then, and they were just getting back into it. Some people had stuck with it all the way, played all the editions, like me. I think I'd played pretty much every edition except fourth. I was playing Pathfinder and other systems at that time. But fifth brought me like back to D&D proper in a very big way. And there's also the fact that fifth edition is so accessible. It's much easier to have a new player who's maybe never even played an RPG period in their life to bring them in and sit down. There's also the fact that since then, like RPG video games have become so much more popular, and like just the concept of like, pretty much anyone walking in cold understands the concept of hit points these days because of video games and whatnot. Like even if they aren't like super into that kind of thing, through osmosis, they've understood, the concepts and the building blocks of what you're going to need to play Dungeons and Dragons have just seeped into everyone's consciousness because fantasy and RPGs in general are so mainstream.
Yeah, certainly. I was going to say, and of course things like Baldur's Gate, and then of course Warcraft, and I guess even with the Satanism of Diablo. But
that's true. Yeah, like Diablo really leaned into that part.
Yeah, that Diablo really brought it up. But
and it is funny to think that at one time, like I think in early second edition, they were just like really soft pedaling any of those elements because they just wanted to avoid any controversy regarding that. And you can understand that as a company. It's just like, this is a real corporate headache for us. Let's just push that aside. But these days, I went to, we talked about the D&D Live Descent into Avernus, which is like literally set in hell. So it's, there was one point where I attended that event and was just sort of like looking around and, they've got the set deck and everyone's dressed up as demons and things like that. It's like, maybe those bothered about Dungeons and Dragons people were right about that Satanism thing.
Well, that's the thing too. Like it's like we always, like on previous episodes, we were always talking about how I probably worse for you, but in high school, like it wasn't cool to be playing D&D or being a nerd. And now because of all the mainstream success, I wouldn't say that people who play D&D are revered, but I mean, like it's more socially acceptable, and like it's paved the way for all these other games. Like a couple of my friends, we play Cyberpunk on Tabletop Simulator. So I have the core rulebook, which I believe is taken from the 5th edition of Dungeons and Dragons. It's actually a really fun game. But so you have that, and you have all these different kinds of games based around the world of Dungeons and Dragons, Baldur's Gate, all these different things. But I don't think if Dungeons and Dragons had been as successful as it was, I don't know if we would see all these TV shows, because people wouldn't be as thinking about, okay, let's think about this like on terms from Dungeons and Dragons. It paved the way for a lot of this stuff. Hero Quest, all this stuff. This wouldn't be around if it wasn't for I don't think anyways, for Dungeons and Dragons. You wouldn't have all these board games.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, just, nerd culture in general. I'm someone who's always swum at that end of the pool. So like, comic books and horror movies and things like that. And again, it's almost in all aspects of that have moved into the mainstream. Certainly you look at, the biggest blockbuster movies are all based on superhero comic books. There's, Star Wars never really went away, but it came back in a big way, obviously. And then speaking to Dungeons and Dragons specifically, you also had people who grew up with Dungeons and Dragons and played it when they were a kid, then moving into positions where it's like, oh, but I'm now the person who's making and popular entertainment. And you had people like, like Vin Diesel or Stephen Colbert talking about how, I love Dungeons and Dragons, and making it more socially acceptable as well. And then you've got Critical Role, for example, like springing up and mainstreaming it at the same time. A bunch of different factors like Stranger Things showing up and bringing D&D and like the nostalgia factor, and people who were back in the 80s and suddenly being reminded of it. And it's like, oh, people play that these days. And of course, just the fact that it's so much easier to find and play a game. That was always the biggest thing when I was a kid, was if I wanted to play Dungeons and Dragons, I usually had to teach people how to play it, and then I would have to be the DM. So there's a lot more options these days.
So you said you were D&D before becoming an actor. When you did the whole Mass Effect trilogy and all that, did you know what you were getting into, or was it like every other project, it had a code name, and like how did that all come about?
Well, I was brought in like very early in the process, and like this is before I was cast as Shepard, because I'd done a lot of work for BioWare since would have been like the late 90s. Baldur's Gate 2 was actually the very first game that I worked on them with. And funnily enough, like almost all of my early work with them was in Dungeons and Dragons based IP. So it was like, Baldur's Gate and Throne of Ball and Kingmaker and Neverwinter Nights. And so I've been working with them for, on many projects before Mass Effect came in, because I'd sort of tended to do like monster roles and things like that. They brought me in to essentially give a presentation on how the various alien races would sound. So I basically came up with pitches based on concept art, based on like, again, pre-release info. They gave me like a big, folder that was just had information on all the alien races. And I was basically just to come up with, what does a baseline Solarian sound like? What does a baseline Krogan sound like? And figuring it out from there. So while I was working on that, I was asked to audition for Commander Shepard, and didn't really hold out much hope at all of landing that. So every now and then I'd get, notice that, okay, while you're doing your work, by the way, we'd like you to do another callback for Commander Shepard. I'm like, sure, okay. And it sort of snuck up on me. By the time that they informed me, it's like, oh, it's down to you and 3 other people. It's like, oh, really? Wow, this could actually happen. And before I knew it, I was informed that I had actually been cast as Commander Shepard. So yeah, that's essentially how it came about. I slowly and gradually, it dawned on me that I'm going to be the lead in this video game, like one of the very first video games that has like a fully voiced protagonist. And not only that, I'm going to be co-sharing this lead role with Jennifer Hale, who is one of the best known and most ubiquitous voice actors in North America, if not the world. And I was a huge fan of Jennifer's from her animation work before we worked together. So yeah, it was in all ways a win for me.
Yes, certainly. when you took on the character and you started to see like those scripts, like those must have been something else, especially with all the variables within the game.
Oh, yes. Like when we worked on the first game, we were still working with paper scripts at that time. So, your script would be like this because you have to cover all the possible variations. And as we went on through the games, the scripts grew more and more dense because, of course, you have to cover every possible branching opportunity, and there's just more and more branches as you go. Thankfully, we did switch to electronic scripts in Mass Effect 2 and saved a few for us that way. Because, like at the end of Mass Effect 1 recording sessions, the recycling bin would just be, as stacked as tall as a person, essentially.
Well, I can say that now that it's available on Game Pass. See, I grew up with Sony, so we never got Mass Effect 1 until it came out as part of the original trilogy on the PS3. But now, I jumped right into 2, and I think the nice thing about 2 was they gave you the backstory for number 1. So
yes,
now,
I recall that we actually recorded a special, sort of essentially a motion comic for the PlayStation players because we knew that they weren't going to be getting Mass Effect 1. So in Mass Effect 2, we just did a little catch-up thing.
Excuse me. Yeah, and now that it's on Game Pass, I can actually play the first one because I really
a spruced up version too.
Exactly, and I really enjoyed the series. Again, I know that there was a lot carried over from 1 to 2 for the Xbox because your decisions they did matter, and you because ultimately there was a big payoff, whether or not a lot of people have found the third ending controversial. So I guess you had to go back and reshoot some alternate endings, or because
those were actually more expanded endings because they essentially just gave, I think, what people there were. I certainly remember people kicking up a little bit because and having spoken to fans, mostly what they wanted was more clarity. As they didn't want an ambiguous ending. They kind of wanted things spelled out, no, I want to know what the state of everything is. And they also wanted closure, particularly emotional closure with these characters that they'd spent so much time with.
Yeah.
And I think both the extended ending and most particularly the Citadel DLC did a really good job of addressing that. There was a friend of mine, Kathleen Rootsart, who's a writer at BioWare. She was the one who really championed the big party at the Citadel. Because and her reasoning was, no, we do need a chance for people to get to see these characters in a social setting one last time and say goodbye to everyone. And you also had the advantage of then getting to see characters interact that had never been in the same space before. Like you got to see Grunt and Rex hanging out, for example, and normally they wouldn't interact at all.
That's really crazy that the not necessarily backlash like you said, but for me, when I played it, and I wasn't angry, mad at the ending, but to me it felt like, okay, my choices up to this point didn't really matter. And I think that's what a lot of people felt with the original ending for 3, but it was just so well done. Commending all of you guys for just putting everything that you have into the roles, because I mean, again, because now we're in a day where voice acting is 99% to 100% of the game now with text underneath. But if you guys didn't sell it the way that you had put into it, I don't think it would have had that same feel. You play some games. Sorry, go ahead.
There is something about being able to hear your character's voice. And as mentioned, this was one of the first games that had a fully voiced protagonist. Normally, you'd have the other characters interacting, and then here's 3 blocks of text for you to choose from. What block of text does your character say? So that made it a little more difficult to get immersed. And also, when you've got a fully voiced protagonist, I've had so many people, couples come up to me at conventions and things like that, and maybe one of them in the couple was the player, and the other person, spouse or partner, was also a Mass Effect fan but had never played the game. It's just oh no, I just watched them play. Whether it was a wife playing through and their husband just watching on the couch, or vice versa, they were able to watch the game as if it were a movie, or actually probably more like several seasons of a TV show, because of the amount of hours that are in there. And that was a real accomplishment. And going back to the endings, I think BioWare did a great job with fleshing out the endings. And before the extended ending was released, my favorite ending was always Destroy, because of course that's the one where there's a possibility that Commander Shepard is alive. You see like the N7 in the chest and the inhalation. But afterwards, I would definitely say that with the extended ending, my favorite ending is probably Control. Of course, Jennifer and I get to voice that ending. But beyond that, Shepard essentially becomes Galactus. So that always appealed to me.
So during recording process, like obviously now everybody is in their own recording studios because of the pandemic. But when you guys were recording, did you have other voice actors in the booths with you feeding off each other, or was it all done through your headsets?
It was all done through headsets, and that's largely because of scheduling. With Mass Effect, you had a very large cast spread out across several countries on a couple of different continents. So very difficult to get everyone together, for one. But even the folks in LA never recorded together. Like I was talking to Seth Green, and I guess, he and Trisha Helfer would often be booked back to back for the recording sessions, but they wouldn't be doing it together. Like they'd see each other in the waiting room, on the way out. It's just like, morning, Sam, morning, Ralph. So they never recorded, like even Edie and Joker's stuff. They never actually recorded together. Hold on one second. I'm just going to reach over here and grab the power cord because I realize my computer is getting close to running out of juice. There we go. There we are. But we did have performances in our headset. BioWare's got this proprietary system called Veda, where we've got our scripts that we're reading usually on an iPad. And as we're going through, as we read our lines, the other actor's dialogue is being triggered and being played to us in real time in our headset. So it's much more natural and organic. You're not acting into a vacuum. You've got the other person's performance and you can react to it. Of course, it'll all depend on where in the process you are recording. So if you're the very first person to record in a given scene, you won't have anyone else because you're the first one. But you will be setting the tone and everyone else will be reacting to you.
Oh, that's really neat.
Yeah. And there were some amazing times with those performances. Jennifer and I have both talked about Anderson's death scene, where we both had Keith David's performance in our headsets as we were recording that scene. And, we both cried. That's probably one of my favorite scenes to get to record. Also because Keith David is amazing. And I was actually getting to listen to his performance as I recorded.
Has a very distinct voice.
Mm-hmm, most definitely. Also, I'm a big fan of The Thing, so
I'll trust you on that. I've never seen that movie, so.
You've never seen The Thing?
No.
Oh, watch John Carpenter's The Thing. Watch it before winter ends. Actually, do it while there's snow on the ground.
Okay. Should I watch it with my kids in the room too?
No, don't watch it with your kids in the room. But it's amazing, and because it relied so heavily on practical effects, it still holds up very, very well, even to modern audiences.
I've heard that. A lot of people make that same commentary that it does still hold up with today's audiences.
Yeah, I mean, you can watch a horror movie from 10 years later, 10 years after The Thing, and especially if it's at the part where they started introducing like early CG, it's like, ooh, that does not hold up half as well as a rubber monster does.
Yes.
I know that was it a remake that they had done? Not recently, but wasn't there?
There was, yeah. It was essentially it was kind of like a prequel, kind of a prequel sequel, and essentially what happens at the Norwegian base that they find destroyed in the original one. And from what I understand, they shot that with complete practical effects and apparently very good ones. But then the studio stepped in and went, "No, we're going to go all CG for this." So they actually painted over these finished practical effects with CG effects.
Wow.
I mean, as a horror movie fan, I really can't support that. I mean, it's your movie, do what you want, but I think it was the wrong choice. I would love to actually see, if it exists, the cut that has those practical effects in it. Because, that movie, I wouldn't say I necessarily enjoyed it as much as the original, but I would have enjoyed it more with practical effects.
Do you like the whole horror genre as well then?
I do. I'm a big Halloween fan and horror movie fan in general, and Cthulhu stuff and horror, cosmic horror. I quite like Call of Cthulhu. So yeah, I am definitely a fan of that stuff.
What did you think of the latest? Well, the first two of this trilogy of the new Halloween series that they
I've
did?
only seen the first one. The first one was okay. I've heard mixed things about Halloween Kills, but I'll probably try to see it before Halloween ends, which is coming this fall, I think.
Hopefully around Halloween.
Although I will say, I'm generally, I'm a horror fan in general, but slasher is not at the top of my list. Of course, it's Michael Myers, so it's like that's the classic. It's he's one of the slasher trinity. But I tend to gravitate more towards supernatural horror.
So that would be supernatural horror. Like, see, I'm not a horror guy. Like, I like the thriller. I like some slasher stuff. I'm more of a comedy horror. Like, I
love comedy horror.
Maybe
for sure.
I was immature, but I thought Club Dread was amazing. I mean, I saw it when I was younger. So like when everything was funny, and Broken Lizard did a lot of weird stuff. But I really enjoyed that movie. But like watching.
Oh, I mean, like think about Evil Dead 2,
okay.
the old Sam Raimi stuff. That was certainly like straddling the line between, like complete gross out, bloody, gory horror and slapstick comedy. I certainly love all of that stuff. But yeah, I tend to gravitate less towards the guy with the knife horror and more towards, werewolves, vampires, ghosts, monsters, that kind of thing.
A lot of the Universal monsters, things like that.
Oh yeah, big fan of the classics.
When Brad was saying like horror comedy, that's the Evil Dead and Army of Darkness. Those ones definitely came to mind for me as well. And of course, like Bruce Campbell is like just insanely quotable throughout the whole movie there, especially in Army of Darkness. And
and I liked Ash versus Evil Dead, the show, and I mean, I have heard that there might be more to that. They might even do a little movie, and I know that in the reboot of Evil Dead they did, which was much more of a straight horror movie, Bruce Campbell had like a little cameo in that. So that would be interesting if they tried to tie it together. I'd be there for it.
Well, especially nowadays, everybody's multiverse in everything. So maybe,
right? Yeah, true enough. You might as well have the Evil Dead multiverse as well, because everyone else has a multiverse. We certainly saw that with No Way Home, and it paid big box office dividends. And we've got, DC multiverse. They'd already been doing that with like on TV with Crisis on Infinite Earths. But we're going to see it on the big screen. Like we're going to have a movie that has two versions of Batman in it.
I'm excited for that.
Batman. Yeah, that's good. And funnily enough, we're going to get two versions of Batman, but in a Flash movie. So, yeah. But that makes sense because Flash has always been, the DC character that's most associated with multiversal travel.
Yeah. Barry was always first to cross over in the.
Well, they did it in the TV show as well when he met himself.
And on the again, like the big crossover of all the DC TV shows, they did Crisis, and they actually had the Ezra Miller Flash show up with Grant's Flash.
That was cool. That was really cool.
I did not expect that to happen. That was just like, holy, really? Wow, they did that, eh?
It always seemed like they were so resistant to do anything to acknowledge that the movie universe and the TV show, like Marvel was right into that right off the hop with Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. and things like that, but they were really keeping universes separated. And now it seems like you said, just bringing in the whole multiverse, acknowledging that there's going to be a whole movie universe. I've even got my Star Lab shirt on here.
Oh yeah, so you do. I'm wearing an Omniblade shirt today, but it's funny because like the excuse up to that I think executives would make, or like the studio would make, would be, well, we don't want the audience to get confused. We can't have like another version of Batman show up. They won't know what's going on, and their heads will explode, and they'll run screaming from the theater. But again, like as we talked about, comic readers have been familiar with a multiverse concept for a very long time. It's always been part of comics, whether you're talking about, like Earth 1 and Earth 2 and Earth 3 over in DC, or just like the what if concept from Marvel. But now in pop culture, the multiverse idea, because we had a what if TV show, you got Loki, you've got one of the biggest movies of all time, Spider-Man, which is all about the multiverse. You got Multiverse of Madness coming up. I think that as a pop culture trope, the audience is fairly well acquainted with it now, and they will go along with you. So we'll probably just see more and more of that as we go, and then it'll get to a point where it's just like, okay, enough. I want to just watch something that happens in one universe and not talk about all. It goes in cycles. But again, as a longtime comic book reader, I'm like very excited to see what happens in the immediate future.
Yeah, 100%. I think, like you said, maybe they are giving the audience a little bit more credit, but I think, like you said, even a more casual viewer, especially with the shows, like you said, on Disney Plus, they've really taken their time to introduce it. For that reason, with Sam Raimi directing the upcoming Doctor Strange movie and the Multiverse of Madness, and they've said Bruce Campbell will be there, and Bruce Campbell's Ash did cross over with Marvel Zombies. So
I've read those books. I read those books where he meets Doctor Doom. Yeah.
So I am very much fingers crossed that his character Ash turns up in.
Oh wow!
Doctor Strange.
If they actually brought Ash in, that would be nuts. I mean, there's also, he was in all the Sam Raimi movies, and the apparent, it was never explicitly stated on film, but apparently if he'd done a Spider-Man 4, they were going to bring him in as Mysterio, and all his little cameos in those movies up to that point would have been like, oh no, it's always been Mysterio. He's always just been, screwing with Spider-Man or Peter Parker, Yeah, or maybe he doesn't even know who he is, but it's just coincidentally he happened to be posing as an usher at a theater when that happened. I'm really hold on. Come on, Edie. Sorry, my dog will probably continue to bark in the background. But the one thing, stuff that I've heard, again, it's all rumor at this point because the movie's not going to be out for another 4 months. But I've heard every rumor from they might bring in a live action version of Captain Carter from What If. So Peggy Carter, but with the super soldier serum, and we actually get to see her in the costume with the Union Jack.
Awesome.
There was a rumor that, again, now that it's happened in Spider-Man, it's probably less likely, but they were saying because it's Sam Raimi, Tobey Maguire Spider-Man might show up in the Doctor Strange and the Multiverse of Madness movie.
Yeah. Tom Cruise has apparently been seen on set as an alternate Tony Stark too. There was a photo that had circulated.
That's right. Yeah, I wonder if that's legit. That would be interesting.
Well, they tried
because
keeping Andrew Garfield for the secret for the longest time, and I mean that was a very
they did, and
bad
also
test.
he lied through his teeth in every interview he gave.
Yeah.
So you certainly can't trust what they say, but that's good. I'm glad that he didn't. I'm glad they didn't just go, yeah, he's in it. It's fine.
Yeah,
because when I saw it in a theater, even though it was in a fairly sparsely populated theater, there was the audible gasp, when you first saw him, and just ooh. And it was, the same, a lesser extent when Charlie Cox showed up as Daredevil, because of course they've been keeping the Netflix Marvel shows separate, somewhat separated from the MCU. So that was nice to see.
Well, and then especially with Hawkeye now, Kingpin making his return, so and the same actor, so it'd be pretty cool to see them bring in this big thing. I really enjoyed the Defenders on I enjoyed all the Netflix shows. Not so much Iron Fist. I thought that was a little hokey, but the rest of the series, everything, and maybe to a lesser extent the second season of Luke Cage, but just them bringing all those gritty characters together for their big season, and then unfortunately it got canceled one by one, and hopefully I don't know, maybe we'll see the Punisher make a return in Doctor Strange as well. So
yeah, I mean, I have heard that MCU wants to bring John Barenthal in. So, and again, when I say heard, it's I've read it on geek news sites, so I'd have no inside knowledge of this, but I really liked his Punisher, so I'd certainly have no problem with just folding him into the MCU like they did Charlie Cox's Daredevil.
Yeah.
So while we're still on the subject about crossovers and zombies and everything. As you know, we're all, like, even I was shocked to find out that you were a mutual friend of my friend Rob Sachetto, who's the zombie artist.
Oh yeah, well, as mentioned, I'm a horror fan, so and particularly enjoyed zombie stuff. So yeah.
So for the people who don't know what he does, he takes pop culture items. He takes, we had talked about this off before you'd come on. He does Valentine's Day things where couples are zombies. So his website, zombieportraits.com, he is the originator of the zombie portrait for pop culture. Now you had requested a Shepard zombie cosplay.
Yes,
style.
I thought that would be most appropriate. Yeah.
So there were so the one that you had sent was a little dark. Not dark in the sense that like dark. It was just like
it was just a crappy quality photo. Is
no,
what I sent
the
you.
shadowing was just for what he did. So we found the second image that you did, and
oh hey, that's fantastic. I'm
so-
Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite zombie portrait on the Citadel.
So what?
Nice shot, very nice work, Rob. Very nice work. I've been following Rob's Facebook page for like years and years. I think
he's done a zombie portrait for every single guest that we've had on. So when I had said that we were having you on, he knows pop culture, and he was really excited to know that we were chatting with you, and he usually will come with ideas and say, does this work or does this work? And then I sent him that picture, and he actually had it an hour after I sent it to him. Like that's how much he loved doing that. And
well, please thank him for me. That's amazing. Now here's a question: Do I get the physical copy of that?
Absolutely.
Ooh.
So
I'll hit you up for an electronic copy of it too if you got one.
I will. Rob will. I will. At least I think he would, because unless the original is the original, but you're getting an originals. I always say originals to Chetto because I got quite a few originals on my wall, but it's a one of a kind. I will reach out to him. Adam, is he in the chat? Because he said that he was going to tune in. So. We're just,
I don't see him here yet.
We've got about a 20-second delay on the from the live stream to this, but I had mentioned that we were going to be shouting out the picture at some point. But yeah, so he again he's a big fan, so he said he was honored to do that. So
excellent. Well, I'm honored to have him do it. As I say, I've been a fan of his art for a while now.
Yeah, he's been a big supporter of like we run our own con in Northern Ontario in Sudbury, and we had a very tiny window to put together a show in October because we didn't know if we were going to get shut down again. We had to cancel everything in 2020 or 2020 because last year was 2021. Wow. And he's been a big supporter of our show every year, and he always does exclusives and one of a kind art that you can only get at the show. So when we struck up the conversation, that I said, hey, would you be willing to do this for each of our guests that come on? He's like, oh yeah, hell yeah. So once we're done chatting, I'll just send you a message on Instagram to get where you want it sent off to. And if Rob has a digital copy as well, then we can definitely have that sent off. And
yeah, if he does, I can share that immediately. If not, I'll wait until it arrives and then take a picture of it.
I see. I can send you one of those. I sorry. He sent me one of those too. I thought you meant like a print, like a copy of the original. I can.
Oh no, I'm gonna need the NFT.
Yeah. Okay. Oh, we're getting into Oh man, NFTs.
No, that's not a train I'm getting on. I've actually had a couple of people ask me about that. It's like, hey, do you want to do a Shepard NFT? I'm like, no, I mean, it just seems, I shouldn't say because I honestly don't understand it, but it sure seems like a scam. And it also, I understand they're really bad for the environment. So it's like, no hard feelings to anybody who does the NFT things, but it's like, I don't think I'm going to get involved. I don't think I want to do that.
So do you have any projects that you can talk about down the pipeline? Like, I know Mass Effect 4 was teased, but I mean, obviously that would be a huge NDA, and we would never do anything to put anyone
I will
in
say that
jeopardy.
if I knew anything, I couldn't say anything.
Yeah.
So yes. Let's see, what can we talk about? We can talk about there are some things I cannot talk about yet because I don't think they've been announced. But an ongoing project that I'm involved in is The Long Dark, which is a game from Hinterland Studio here in Canada on Vancouver Island. They are a great company. A lot of folks that worked on AAA games from big companies who struck out on their own and formed their own indie. And it's a great survival game that's very Canadian. In fact, I call it Player versus Canada because the entire point is to try to not freeze to death or starve or whatnot. It's a post-apocalyptic game, but very beautiful. It's not a ruined world. It's a world where nature has is predominant. My character is a bush pilot who's above Northern Canada when this geomagnetic event knocks out all power on Earth, like just all electricity on Earth is gone, and you crash in the northern Canadian wilderness and then try to survive from there. So there's a sandbox setting where you just try to survive as long as you can, without a HUD or a map. I should remind you, it's a pretty difficult game. There's also a story setting, and in that story setting, Jennifer Hale is one of the characters, and we actually play a divorced couple in this game. So we actually get to, it's mostly in flashback, our scenes together, but we actually get to have scenes rather than playing the same person. So that's really nice. So Jennifer's in it. I'm in it. We've got Elias Tefexis from Deus Ex. He played Adam Jensen. He, in the latest narrative chapter that we just dropped, he plays an excellent and despicable villain. We had David Hayter, who played Snake in the Metal Gear Solid games, legendary voice actor. And as I mentioned, we're all Canadian.
Yeah,
and it's set in Canada, made in Canada, Player versus Canada.
That's and I actually have I when I saw it in it was EB at the time, now it's GameStop. I picked it up on a whim, and they're not quite finished yet, right? There's still episodes coming. They continue. There's such support for this game, like tech support and narrative support. We started as a Kickstarter. It was very successful. And so we've been working on this game for years, and we continue to put out, and that Hinterland continues to refine it. They put out updates constantly. They're very involved with their community. The feedback is amazing. There's, as I say, narrative chapters. So sort of in the style of the old Walking Dead games, where it's like, okay, now you're going to get another narrative chapter. You can just play sandbox if you want. And that continues to get updated with new maps and upgrades. But the narrative settings get released every now and then. We've just released, I want to say in October, I think it was, we released the latest narrative chapter, and that continues to get worked on. So that's, as I mentioned, that's an ongoing thing. So that's one of the things I'm in. We did talk about gaming wise, the Black Dice Society, which is on every Thursday on the official Dungeons and Dragons Twitch and YouTube. That's a Ravenloft game DM'd by B. Dave Walters, a great group of player characters, and I'm really happy to be in that campaign. There, of course, is Champions of the Realm, which is playing every Wednesday on the Dungeons and Dragons YouTube channel and on Realmsmith's channel. And that will continue until we have a champion. It is, of course, I can't tell you what happened. We've already shot it. It's like a reality show. But I had a great time doing that. So you continue to watch that every Wednesday, and do support the charitable causes that all the players are in favor of. Let's see. What charity are you doing it for? I don't know if we.
Well, I'm doing it for Make-A-Wish International.
Okay.
I've worked with them before. Oftentimes, folks that BioWare is working with have, one of their wish is to come up to BioWare and get like a complete tour and look behind the scenes at BioWare, and they often bring me in as a guide during
Very
that.
cool.
So yeah, that's a really gratifying thing to be involved with, and also my character Baloth has a genie, like a djinn. So Make-A-Wish seemed very thematic.
That's awesome.
Yeah. Let's see what else. There's Idle Champions Presents, which is another a game that I play Baloth in. Less PvP, more traditional Dungeons and Dragons setting. B. Dave often DMs those as well. And of course, I'm available on Cameo for all your Mass Effect catchphrase related needs.
One of my friends sent me a message saying, I'm sorry if I butcher this. He says, "Please make some reference to disingenuous assertions." I don't know what that means.
I'm tired of your disingenuous assertions. That's something that Shepard says right before he punches a
Oh,
recorder.
okay. So that's I thought it was like some secret code that he had come up
Oh
with.
no, that's a line I say in the games. And oh, gee, I just realized since we're doing plugs, one other place you can hear me is on a weekly basis. I do a Vampire the Masquerade podcast
Yes.
called Stitch of Fate, a podcast by night. We started that during the pandemic, and another great bunch. Little Red Dot out of Atlanta is the one who invited me to come play that. We've got the Bubbernaut, also from the States, and Gaming Faster Than Light from the UK. We're the coterie of vampires, and our storyteller is Mathis Games. Does an amazing job. And that's an audio only podcast. We've done a couple of video ones, like with me, like in full vampire prosthetics, like I play a Nosferatu in it, so it's a fairly intense costume. And that drops every Friday, pretty much anywhere where you would find a podcast, all major platforms. And once again, that's Stitch of Fate, a podcast by night.
That's a lot. You're a busy person.
I am a busy person. I can be. Oddly enough, during this pandemic, when all the things I usually do are canceled, because I do like live theater and improv. That's what occupied a lot of my time before all of this started. So that's kind of moved into online RPGing is what occupies most of my time now.
Do you do you game? Like do you have do you game on any systems, or is it strictly like Dungeons and Dragons, or do you play yourself and then reenact your own lines?
Oh no, I definitely I actually just managed to get an Xbox S. I'm gonna
get in mine on Monday.
I'm gonna wait until I get an Xbox X, I think, to dive into like the Legendary Edition, because I want to take a look at that again. Yeah. But I did get suckered into picking up the anniversary edition of Skyrim. Like I've played Skyrim so much, and it's like, ooh, a new hat. Yeah, sure, I'll play Skyrim again for a new hat. You bet. Exploring some of the stuff that I hadn't done. Plus, with the Creation Club, there's like a lot of mods that are just adventures, right? Yeah. That are just created by the fans. So I've been enjoying going back and doing that. I have been playing a lot of old stuff. Like I went back, like last year, I replayed Fallout New Vegas.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah, I'm a big Fallout fan. So went back and did that. I've got, I'd say the majority of my time is probably more the tabletop RPG as opposed to video gaming. But I go back and I revisit the old favorites every now and then.
If you're looking for a good board game to play, I don't know I think it's been discontinued, but Fantasy Flight Games came out with an actual Fallout tabletop RPG, and it is phenomenal. Like it's a lot better if you have the Atomic Bonds edition, because then you can actually play with your friends instead of against them. But and
I know Modifius, I think, is coming out with some Fallout RPG stuff.
I have that as well. Wasteland Warfare. That's your more of your skirmish, like Warhammer kind of style game. But I've that's the stuff that I'm into when my friends do come when we're not locked down. We'll pull up board games. We'll play X-Wing miniatures. That's what I grew up with. Like I getting back quickly about Dungeons and Dragons. I want to say it was a second edition that my uncle had in my grandfather's house, and when I was younger, and my parents took it and threw it out, talking about the whole satanic thing, and it was. Now I look back and I'm like, this could have been worth some money. It's a second edition print.
Yeah,
and
probably,
it's gone.
Probably. Yeah.
But
and speaking of like D&D tabletop and video games, one thing that I am very much looking forward to is Baldur's Gate 3. The Larian Studios version. So I want to wait until it's like, completely out of early release and it's like all, it's just like, no, it's shipped and this is the game. But what I've seen from it looks amazing. So I do definitely want to check that out.
That's awesome. So where else can people find you? Like not just like necessarily on YouTube, but like your own like Instagram. You can, if you want to drop anything like that.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm one of those disorganized people who does not have unified social media tags. So on Instagram, I'm Mr. Mark Meer. That's Mr. period Mark Meer. On Twitter, I am Mark _ Meer. I don't have my own Twitch channel. I tend to guest on other people's Twitch channels because that means they don't do all the work and I just show up. It's great. So those Instagram and Twitter are usually the best social media, as mentioned on Cameo. If you feel the need for me telling your friend happy birthday, then I'm there for that. I can say other things too. So generally, and of course conventions, because conventions have started up again. They might be paused again. I'm not sure, but
nobody knows anymore.
Nobody knows. But I did hit the ground running in last September or August, September. Like Dragon Con was my first big con back live in person, and I think I did a con, almost every weekend at the tail end of last year. Awesome. Up until PAX Unplugged in December, and then now it's a bit of a lull again, and we'll see if, for example, D&D in a castle, and hopefully that's not until March, so I'm all set for that, and hopefully other conventions as well as we continue to crawl our way back to normal.
It's a very slow crawl, but we'll get there. It's just
that's the hardest thing about that 14-day lockdown is the first 2 years.
Well, unfortunately, I'm in a involuntary quarantine. My wife found out a couple days ago that she had contracted COVID, and
and then of course then you must quarantine. Though I hear. I mean, it's for less time now, right? Like, it's 5 days without symptoms.
It's 5 days without symptoms. But if you work in a high risk setting, which I do because I work in a hospital, it's 10.
Oh, of course.
So I'll have plenty of gaming time. I get my Xbox Series S on Monday, so I'll be.
That's good timing. That is good timing for that to arrive when you're
almost like I planned it. No, I would never plan for something like that. That would be terrible. But just before we let you go,
sure.
Does Commander Shepard have anything to say to the NerdCast?
I'm Commander Shepard, and NerdCast is my favorite stream on the Citadel.
That's perfect.
Fantastic.
Well, we really appreciate you taking the time out. We know that you're a busy person, and I felt like a stalker. I was like, I don't want to keep pestering people. Because,
no.
But
that's the only way to get me to do anything is to pester me constantly.
Hey. But again, thank you very much for taking the time out to chat with us, and
most welcome.
Look forward to future projects that you can't talk about right now.
Thanks, man. We will talk to you guys later, and thank Rob again for the excellent zombie. Can I see that again one last time?
Yeah, absolutely. So you've got I feel like Vanna White here.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And yes, please do send me the JPEG of that, and
absolutely.
I will throw that up on the social medias at some point.
Perfect. I will send that to you as soon as we're finished with the stream.
That'll be next week's Fan Art Friday, maybe.
Awesome. That'll be great. I know he'd love that. So.
Of course.
Perfect. Well, thanks again, and enjoy the rest of your day because I know it's 2:00 there. So
I shall. Thanks, folks.
Take care.
We'll see you around.
Thanks, Mark.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Mark. Appreciate it.
Well, there you have it, everybody. Mark Meer, the guest of Season 2's premiere of NerdChats. I'm going to have to fix the thumbnails because I put Captain Shepard and it's Commander Shepard. So that's two mistakes because I swear I saw Kevin Smith, but it's not Kevin Smith.
He's in the realm. He's in the whole fan cast area, so it's a fair mistake.
Oh yeah, I mean it is what it is. Like I said, it's the first live stream, so I had fun. I think this will be the format going forward. It's just it seems like, unfortunately, I don't see any comments besides just you and me, but
yeah, well, I mean, everybody starts somewhere, and we're still building towards good things. I mean, the nice thing is, even if it's you and I here, we've been very fortunate, very lucky, and blessed here to have such great talent like Mark and other people on on our humble little podcast here.
Yeah, and then next weekend, I know you and Clayton are sitting this one out because you haven't played Guardians of the Galaxy. So I had to reach out into the galaxy. See what I did there? And it's going to be myself and Drew, who is the CEO of Inside the Game. We are going to be chatting with some of the cast of Guardians of the Galaxy, the video game. Glenn, not the movie. I don't know why you thought I would be talking to Batista, but I mean, hey, someday maybe. But
That's
yeah,
right.
we're gonna be chatting with Star-Lord, who was voiced by John McLaren, and Gamora, who is voiced by her name's Kimberly Sue. And I'm looking forward to that, having them both on. Might have the rest of the cast. It depends on whether or not any what's the word I'm thinking of, Adam? Help me here. Correspondence relay has been made with them. I've reached out, and the agent for both John and Kimberly Sue messaged me back saying that John and her would love to do it. Sorry, I'm stumbling my words because I'm losing my voice a little bit. So I have to have some full beard brewing 5 o'clock shadow. But yeah, so next weekend we'll be chatting with the Guardians. I'm really looking forward to that one. The game was incredible. Adam, you've got to play it on the X, not on the Series X.
Yeah,
it's so good. The writing was so well done. Who knows? Maybe you have a week to play it and you decide to come on the podcast. It's not an overly long game. It's like 20 hours, but I mean, you've only got so much time, especially with the kids and work and your wife's YouTube channel. What is your wife's YouTube channel name, Adam?
She currently, right now, you can find her on YouTube as Melissa Beverly Inspires, and she is right on the cusp. She is a subscriber away from making it a permanent URL. So if anybody wants to go over there and help her out, YouTube search Melissa Beverly Inspires.
So my Mel, if you're still watching, just go and subscribe. Put her at the 100. Have her surpass me in subscribers. I'm still at stagnant 108. We'll hopefully get there with the numbers, but
everything will get there.
Everything it all works out. Like I'm just watching the status go up, and we had at the peak we had 4 viewers.
Fantastic.
So, but again, you got to go somewhere, and maybe I'm hoping with the live ones, if someone's searching for Mass Effect, it'll pop up and populate and all that. But one last time before I let you go, Adam, where can people find you?
You can find me at youtube.com/SvennyMcG. And you can find Svenny McG, SVENNYMCG, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. Find me there. Like I said, if you want to see any of this stuff here, maybe even some of those guys, go ahead and search there. Like I said, especially if you're into retro gaming, I'm doing a lot of old equipment, peripherals, devices. So check me out over there.
Awesome. We will conclude there. Thanks for the people who tuned in. Again, thanks to Mark for taking time to chat with us. Thank you so much to Rob Sachetto, zombieportraits.com.
Yep.
Make sure you check out his work. It is absolutely incredible. The guy is dedicated to everything he does. He doesn't put out a product if he doesn't think it's worth his time. Sorry, not like that, but he won't put out a product if it's like
not to his standards.
Not to his standards. That's what I meant. Not. Wow, that sounded really bad. Not to his time. Not to his standards. He is a perfectionist in every positive way. So thanks again, Rob, and
a great human being.
Yes, he is a phenomenal human being. A big supporter of what we do. He's a big supporter of our show, the expo, everything. So Rob, again, thank you so much. We will see everybody next weekend for the second episode of Nerd Chats Live. I'm not sure. Adam, Clayton, and I will probably do a podcast at some point. Definitely want to talk about we're about a week and a half, 2 weeks behind, but talk about the Activision acquisition by Microsoft. Thanks, everybody. Take care.